Good morning and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting for the Sunshine Coast Regional District on Thursday, July the 11th. I'd like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that we are on the territories of the Sechelt and Squamish nations. We have an agenda before us. Is there any tinkering to be done to the agenda? Seeing no tinkerers, I look for a motion to adopt. Moved? Seconded? All in favor? Brilliant, we have an agenda. I will also look for a report to receive all reports and communications, including the handout that we have just received on paper. Thank you. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. And I trust that everybody does have the handout from the town of Gibson, so we're good to go. Thank you very much. The first item up, by some coincidence, is the Town of Gibson's Watershed 560 agreement with Emmanuel Machado, CAO, and Trevor Bretley, Director of Infrastructure. Welcome. And Michelle Lewis, Natural Asset Technician as well. Welcome this morning.
Thank you, Chair. Just bear with me while I get the IT going. It looks it's good for everyone. It sounds less ominous now. Okay, thank you all. Now that we have the IT issues out of the way. Good morning. I'd like to acknowledge, first off, that the Town of Gibson's and Sunshine Coast Regional District are located on the territories of the Sechelt and Squamish nations. Thank you all for the opportunity to present some information about the Town of Gibson's water system and our natural asset approach to managing Aquifer 560. Sorry about that. There you are. Here's a high-level view of the Gibson's water system within the context of the SCRD water system. With the exception of a handful of properties at the fringe areas between Gibson's and Elphinstone boundaries, Gibson's water system is entirely supplied by Aquifer 560 and operated by the town. Gibson's has 4 production wells, 3 in Lower Gibson's and 1 commissioned in 2023 in Upper. These wells supply water to 2 reservoirs, which provide water service to the distribution system through a combination of gravity and pumping. While Gibson's water system can support typical system demand, the town currently relies on the SCRD for fire protection in the upper part of Gibson's via the storage in the Henry Road Reservoir and the Reed Road Pump Station. There is also an interconnection between the Gibson's and SCRD water systems, which allows for the systems to work as emergency backups to each other. This interconnection is what enabled the town to supply the SCRD with water during the droughts of 2021 and 2022. Another key feature of the Gibson's water system is that it is fully metered and has been since 2008, when universal metering was implemented. Since then, per capita water consumption has steadily decreased to 2023, when it was slightly more than half of the per capita consumption prior to metering. This reduction in consumption is a reflection of the conservation efforts the town has made and has been achieved through a combination of education, leak detection, and volumetric billing. Water conservation is fundamental to the town's natural asset-based approach to managing the water system and understanding and protecting Aquifer 560. In 2013, the town completed the Aquifer Mapping Study. While it was titled Mapping Study, it did much more than just map the extents of the aquifer. It also provided a wealth of information about the aquifer, including identifying recharge areas, impacts of drought and climate change, and the sustainable supply capacity of the aquifer. The mapping study was updated in 2022, which highlighted the considerable progress the town had made in better understanding the movement and cycling of water in the aquifer. The update also refined the mapped extent of the aquifer and identified it as a composite of 3 aquifer lobes, from west to east: the Elphinstone lobe, the Gibsons lobe, and the Soames lobe. The town continues to implement the recommendations of the Aquifer Mapping Study. In 2023, we completed a flow accretion study on both Gibson Creek and Chester Creek to better understand the interaction between surface water and groundwater within the watershed. The flow accretion study is a way of identifying where water is moving from a stream into the groundwater or from groundwater to surface water. Since 2020, the town has also been working with the Natural Assets Initiative on the Source to Sea project. The goal of this project is to ensure that the natural assets within the Aquifer 560 watershed are understood, measured, valued, and ultimately managed to protect their integrity and to safeguard the reliable flow of core infrastructure services and diverse co-benefits. The final report was presented to the town's Committee of the Whole on July 9th and is now available on the town's website. I really can't do that project justice here. I would highly recommend that you all take the time to have a look at that. Through the natural asset lens of aquifer management, the town has 2 key regulations in place to ensure Aquifer 560 is protected from the impacts of development. In 2014, the Water Regulation Bylaw 1192 was updated to include permitting requirements for excavations within the area in Lower Gibsons where the aquifer is closest to surface and in artesian condition. In 2015, Development Permit Area 9 was introduced in the town's OCP and provided guidelines for developments with contamination potential, developments in the wellhead protection area, and in the Lower Gibsons sub-area. Both Bylaw 1192 and DPA 9 are in the process of being updated to better align with the current understanding of the aquifer characteristics and to provide clarity for both applicants and reviewers. Coming back to this map, so the pale blue extent is the current understanding of the aquifer, the mapped extents of the aquifer, and the pale yellow is the Lower Gibsons sub-area, which is again where the more restrictive regulations are with ground excavation and development. Built on the recommendations of the aquifer mapping studies, the town has an extensive network of monitoring stations throughout Aquifer 560 watershed. This includes groundwater monitoring wells, weather stations, and creek flow stations. Specifically, there are 11 monitoring wells distributed throughout town and 1 outside of town at the school district works yard on Henry Road. There are 6 weather stations at various elevations within the watershed, and 3 creek monitoring stations on Chester Creek, Sharman Creek, and Gibson Creek. The equipment allows us to monitor precipitation to infiltration to better understand the interaction between surface water and groundwater in the context of aquifer recharge. Specifically, we monitor precipitation, temperature, creek flow, and in the wells, baseline well levels and saltwater intrusion. Brings us to the Aquifer 560 Watershed Agreement. In 2023, the town and the SCRD signed the Aquifer 560 Watershed Agreement. The agreement improved on the 2013 Bulk Water Agreement and commits both local governments to jointly expand the monitoring program across the ecological area of the watershed. In addition to the expansion of the monitoring program, pursuing a water sustainability plan area designation, and creating a fringe area plan, the agreement includes a commitment to collaborate on optimizing the interconnection between the SCRD and the Town of Gibson's water systems, to build greater resiliency for both systems. They will evaluate ways to bolster the level of service each community can reliably provide through strengthened infrastructure and coordinated water supply strategies, align wellhead and aquifer protection strategies, DPA requirements, and aquifer monitoring and modeling programs to enable a common understanding of the aquifer characteristics and plan for sustainable operation of the two water systems to align with drought forecasts, enhance the integration of alignment of emergency response plans and emergency operating procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor, and good morning. So the purpose of our submission is to share our experience. Camera? Shows video is on. See me okay? Okay. So the purpose of our submission is to share our experience as a partnering water purveyor on the Sunshine Coast and to provide feedback and recommendations to the board's draft Sunshine Coast Regional Water Strategy. Our feedback is made in good faith and in the spirit of regional cooperation in our role as a partner in the provision of water services to the residents and businesses of Gibsons and the Sunshine Coast, as outlined in our Aquifer 560 agreement between Gibsons and the region. Our concerns with the proposed strategy are as follows. Our primary concern with the proposed approach in the strategy is that the SCRD's regional water system, as currently laid out, extends with excessive connections through multiple watersheds, communities, and territories, resulting in high energy pumping costs and greater potential for unaccounted loss of water. This extensive system struggles to provide water reliably to all users during drier periods, a situation that is worsening with a climate change. Our second concern is that to meet the current and future needs of the region, the SCRD is proposing to rely on the new sources of water identified in Aquifers 560 and 552 in Langdale. Doing so without first meeting the local needs of the residents and businesses in Gibsons, Elphinstone, Roberts Creek, and portions of West Howe Sound puts the future sustainability and water needs of these areas at risk. Thirdly, while we strongly support the efforts to complete the installation of water meters in the Seashell area, the regional water strategy is limited in its sense of urgency and in providing a clear vision and action plan, including a more aggressive approach to addressing unaccounted for loss of water due to leaks. Next slide, please. We respectfully request that consideration be given to the following recommendations. That the SCRD establish a new groundwater-based service area supplied by Aquifer 560 and eventually 552 to supply Roberts Creek, Elphinstone, and portions of Area F, West Howe Sound. And that the SCRD implement the recommendations and commitments of the Aquifer 560 agreement, including optimizing the distribution systems between Gibsons and the SCRD, expanding the environmental monitoring program, and updating the regulatory framework for aquifer protection to match the rigorous requirements already applied in town. In our opinion, the benefits of this approach are: combined, the new SCRD service area and town systems could potentially serve 9,800 people, or 34% of the coast's population. It would allow residents and businesses in areas D, E, and F to have access to a reliable source of water from their local watershed, similar to what the residents of Gibsons access. As many, if not all, properties are metered in the rural areas of the RD, isolating the new zone would greatly improve the SCRD's ability to identify and repair leaks in the new zone. Additionally, It allows for accurately implementing a fair pricing mechanism to better recover the costs of providing the water services. It would reduce the number of users accessing Chapman's system by as much as 20%, or 5,000 people approximately. It would provide water to support the Chapman system as necessary, assuming their environmental and licensing limits are observed. It could also serve as an emergency backup to the Chapman system, and it can be implemented in 8 to 12 months if deemed a priority. This completes our submission, and I thank you for the opportunity, and we are available to take any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for that very interesting. I did have one question before anybody else gets started. The map that you showed of Aquifer 560, how deep is that? Because I notice it does not overlap very clearly with Chapman Creek. And often there is where there is a creek, where there's surface water, there is aquifer underlying it. So I was just wondering what the depth of that aquifer is as shown on the map.
Thank you. It's highly variable from Upper Gibsons to Lower Gibsons. The aquifer becomes shallower. So in Lower Gibsons, we have the regulations around excavation come into effect at 1.5 meters below surface. So the aquifer isn't necessarily that shallow, but the aquitard is. In Lower Gibsons, as you get into Upper Gibsons, it doesn't match the topography of the surface, so it becomes deeper as the terrain gets steeper. The actual depth through there, it varies, and I don't have that at the top of my head, but it's considerably deeper, like 20 to 50 meters to more.
Thank you. I see Director Inkster.
Thank you, Chair. I saw this coming, where the Gibsons would come to the regional district to talk about water, and I mentioned it previously to a couple of directors that eventually we would have to have this conversation, as well as the fact that the last conversation that I had with the administrator of Gibsons when we were at an event was talking about the aquifer, and where Mr. Machado directed me to their website to look at their aquifer mapping and some of the aquifer data. And that was the last conversation, so it's an indication. I would say that I was expecting this, because I was looking for that information. One question I would ask, though, with the report being presented, is this the first time that our staff has seen this report that was presented today?
Over to staff.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions, through the chair. We received parts of this recently in a few slides, and we've only had a 10-minute able to provide some feedback to TOG staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Stanford.
Yes, I'm not sure. I'm directing this to the chair, but I'm not sure who it goes to. But I am interested in further details in your second concern. I do not understand how the SCRD is not considering the local needs of residents in Gibson's, Elfstone, Roberts Creek, and West Howe Sound by its current water strategy plan. I don't see how it puts, the way I understand it, I'm not sure how it puts the sustainability of water needs in these areas at risk. So if I could get some further details, I'd appreciate it.
Through the chair, we try to match our growth potential as defined in the OCP with the resources that are available, and our licenses are aligned with that from a provincial perspective. The town has more growth to experience over the next few years. The concern is if water gets licensed to the SCRD to service the Chapman system in the future, then it limits our availability of that water in future years. That's primarily the concern. We just want to make sure that we're leaving enough for future generations and that we're not pre-committing the existing resource to others.
Just as a follow-up then, so I can understand the rationale, I'm wondering if regional district staff have a response to that.
I'll send that over to staff, but I do think that we probably need a more thought-through response at a future meeting. Thank you. Over to staff.
Thank you for the question. I think that's indeed one of the many items that could be further explored by staff in response to this, if so directed by the board.
CAO Machado.
Thank you. The aquifer agreement that we have, the fringe area plan and the land use plan, it would be the way for us to address that question, to make sure that all the communities in that space we are aligning not just the regulation, but the growth and having the right development in the right place. I think that's one of the benefits of the agreement, is that portion of it. We've done some work already with your staff as well, primarily through the last fall primarily. So we think that's important as we are working on our official community plan update, and you're doing the same. That would be the time so that we're not we can anticipate where the opportunities are.
Thank you. Director Bax.
Yeah, maybe I've got the right people in the room to ask this question. I'm wondering how an aquifer like 560 differs from aquifer 555, which is underneath Roberts Creek. Now it says it's in the aquifer mapping that I've found that it's a bedrock aquifer, and whereas 560 is a sand and gravel aquifer. And I was wondering how they differ in the availability of water. I don't know if there's anybody in the room that can answer that question.
Give it a try.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll attempt to I think the amount of information that's available for aquifer 555 is quite limited, just due to a lack of exploration within it. I think there's certainly a number of wells that are drilled within that aquifer. I don't think there's been a lot of study and analysis that has gone into it to understand it in the same way as aquifer 560. So I think maybe one of the big differences is just the amount of information that's available about aquifer 560. You're correct in that it's an unconsolidated sand and gravel aquifer, so it has a lot more reliability as far as it's a lot more consistent, I suppose. Bedrock aquifers are inherently difficult to develop and explore just because of the unpredictability about finding water. You're relying on finding a fissure in bedrock, which is a bit of a shot in the dark. I think that, I think the watersheds as well, given the topography, I think there may be more of a catchment area in aquifer 560 than aquifer 555, just given the localized topography. But again, I think more information would likely be needed around 555 to understand the similarities and differences in recharge characteristics.
Thank you. Director Lee.
Thank you. I'm just looking for a little clarification on the recommendations. I'm always concerned when the RD is being suggested they aren't living up to their agreement. You mentioned that to implement the recommendations and commitments in the agreement. When I read it, it says explore. I was wondering how explore got to recommendations and commitments.
Can you repeat that question?
Yes. In the recommendations that I'm reading here, it says that implement the recommendations and commitments And so I went back to the agreement and read it because I'm concerned that the RD might not be meeting its recommendations and commitments. And in the agreement, it says explore. Is the suggestion that they're not working with you to explore this? Or is the suggestion that they are not meeting the commitments that it said we would explore?
We are working on the agreement. It lays out a work plan for both parties. Admittingly, some parts of the mutual commitments have seen more progress than others, but we're confident that we can do that. I think our reference in terms of urging the implementation of the recommendations is because it would support, for example, the fringe area plan is important component. If the SCRD was to take our suggestion of creating this new zone, it makes our obligations and our commitments in the agreement more important. So it's more of a question of urging action rather than whether you're doing it or not. So.
Follow up?
The parties will explore the regulatory and legislative mechanisms, it says. The parties will explore opportunities to expand for the fringe strategy. It doesn't say we have committed to, and this says the agreement commits the RD to do this. I'm having trouble with the statement. That's a future discussion, sorry.
Yeah, I think perhaps you're
wanted
diving a little deeper than we need to this morning on having received this report, half an hour ago. So I'm going to go to Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I got no questions for the delegation, just a couple of comments, but I wanted to start with the comments Director Lee made, in that I understand exactly where he's coming from in terms of, we will, et cetera. But at the end of the day, this is delegation materials that have come to us. So, they can make recommendations to us, and it's up to us whether we're going to do anything with them at all, regardless of who the delegation is. Given that we did only receive this just a couple of minutes before we got started this morning, I'm hoping that we'll get a digital copy of the materials so that I can at least share it out with my council. At first blush, I've got many thoughts about a potential loss of water supply to the Seashelt area if we were to break up the regional water service, which is what I gleaned from reading this. So I do look forward to additional conversations when we have a chance to dig into it in greater detail, but I can't dig into this in great detail today. Thanks.
Yes, I agree. There's a lot of implications, and they include what would a water service look like from a legislative standpoint, and volumetric billing systems, because I do think that it is desirable on the coast that as we transition to volumetric billing, that we be consistent between the various areas in how we do that. It's an equity question, and also it ease for the public in understanding how these systems work, because people don't understand our political boundaries. I will go next to Director Gabius, who hasn't spoken yet.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, I just want to thank the delegation. Thank you so much for coming today and presenting this to us. I really appreciate it, and I think it fits well with our strategic plan, priority water, and then we are looking at innovative partnerships too, which I think collaboration is needed as much as possible. And I'm looking forward to hopefully receiving a report from SCRD staff as to what the implications and impacts of these recommendations would be. And I'm wondering if that would be a motion that would need to be put forward, or if this is something that staff is already contemplating getting to us in the near future.
I'm going to put a little hold on this for a minute. I'm going to go through the speakers list, and then I'm going to go to our CAO for some suggestions. So I'm just warning her in advance. If you don't mind, I'll go next. Oh, Director White did have his hand up. Now it's down again. All right, Director Bax.
So yeah, I'm really grateful for the sense of collaboration that the municipality and the regional district are trying to achieve. I think it's the best thing to serve our public. I think that we're well on the way to already adhering to these recommendations anyway. With the advent of Church Road is coming out of Aquifer 560. It's a groundwater well that serves the regional district, and with Langdale kind of on the shelf right now, I know that sometime in the future that Langdale will. I have every confidence that Langdale will be a well that will be part of our system, and that's in Aquifer 552. So I'm looking forward to seeing what staff has to say about these recommendations, and if anybody's going to create a motion today.
We'll get there, believe me. Director Inkster.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I did appreciate Director Toth's question about the electronic version being provided to us, and if in fact I didn't see through you to the presenters whether that would come. And it would be good if we could include that as part of a motion for staff to look at this, for the electronic version to come to us as well, if that's possible, because there is some information in there, and I think the further discussion on this will talk about how meters were really important, that they come to a number of, or all the communities on the Sunshine Coast a little bit earlier than now. We all know the ramifications of that, the need for meters, the need to roll out the volumetric billing program earlier in terms of the entire regional district, and the need to detect the leaks earlier. So it's good that this discussion will continue, because it's a form of public communication about the need for certain infrastructure that wasn't necessarily supported by some, but also the fact that if we could get this report, that would be great, because we do need to share it with our council, because it does speak to future water supply. Although in that future discussion, it would be good to talk about infrastructure and where the water from this area does come to anyway, because there might be some infrastructure limitations anyway as to how far that extra water comes. Thanks.
Thank you. Was there a question in there? I don't think we need a motion to ask for the electronic copy, and it should also be posted on our website as a late item for the agenda. Director White.
Yeah, I wanted to largely speak now to thank staff from the town of Gibsons. I think that this, and I do apologize to the board on behalf of the town for just getting the material in today. This has been a lot of work just in the past several days, because this was not on the original draft agenda. It was just kind of seen as a need for it, as you know, the next step that needed to be taken in considering the water strategy. So we kind of, the chair reached out to me, and I went to our staff, like what would it have been? Was it Monday? Yeah, saying, hey, can you pull something together? So I'm just in that context, I hope everyone understands that this is a lot of work and information that's been pulled together in only a few days, and it's seen as the start of a conversation. There's no intent here. I want to be clear to change the Aquifer 560 agreement. There's no intent to change the word explore to implement or anything. We just need to get to that word explore. Like, we just need to get working on the stuff that's already in that agreement is all we're really hoping for here on that matter. And that, yeah, I mean, I also, part of the context too is the town's been working for a number of years since I was last on council to try to take, just responding to the challenges the Chapman system is facing and trying to take pressure off the Chapman system. That's kind of been our natural assets orientation for about a decade now. And that's why we worked on getting, successfully getting Upper Gibsons off the reliance on Chapman Water. And we're continuing to work on looking at these fringe areas and really looking at the approach of trying to be sustainable within our own watershed, and that's kind of how we always see things. And it's just a different way of looking at things. I always have trouble here when I hear the Chapman system mentioned, and I just think of, because I'm over in Gibson's mindset, I think of Chapman Lake. I don't think of the infrastructure. I think of the watershed. Whereas sometimes when people here are talking about the Chapman system, they're talking about water coming out of Aquifer 560 in a far away from where Chapman Lake actually is, and in supplementing, really, I mean, supplementing the Chapman system, but it's kind of seen all as a man-made infrastructure system where we are proposing a different kind of mindset in looking at more of a watershed, natural assets outlook. Yeah, I appreciate staff didn't even want to get deeply into what could happen in the Chapman system as well. We feel like we just really wanted to focus on our watershed. One question I had, though, just to close off, I'll say a couple more words after, but we do have some of the reporting from consultants that we are trying to share back and forth through to explore some of these opportunities in the Aquifer 560 agreement. Could you address that, and just what those conversations are with the SCRD about, like, I know there's an urban systems report, what that system is, or what that report is specifically about, and where we're going with the conversations?
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, we've been working with urban systems and water lines, so they're the town's our civil engineering consultant and hydrogeological consultant that the town often works with on, it's referred to as the One Water strategy. So looking at water within the context of the watershed in terms of potable water, stormwater, and wastewater, and the interrelation between the three of those, between all of, it's all one kind of water. And currently we've been working with urban systems and water line. We've provided them with a host of information. Really, it's looking to be a collaboration between town staff and regional district staff, where we're sharing information with each other to come to a common understanding and find opportunities for efficiencies, for improving the interconnections between the town system and the regional district system to improve operation, looking to align monitoring programs, which is where we've brought the hydrogeological consultants into it, so we can look at where there's gaps in our monitoring network, where there's information gaps within the understanding of the aquifer, so we could try to improve the understanding and get a better sense of what the total volume is within that aquifer that would be available. So we've been working with urban and waterline. They've received all of the information that we've had available. We've received some information from the regional district. There's still I'd say an outstanding request for some information from the RD staff. So once we receive that, we would be able to, urban and waterline would be able to complete their analysis and then kind of move into recommendations and next steps.
Thank you. I'm going to go over now to our acting CAO for a suggestion on what might be some possible next steps and a timeline. I'm really concerned that we're halfway through July, and I suspect that we have a lot of items backed up for our next agendas before we take the summer break. So over to you, Ms. Perot.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and apologies, had to step out of the meeting earlier, so haven't been part of the full discussion. So, yes, I think that staff would appreciate having some time to contemplate what the implications are in the overall work plan. I think this is one of the items that is considered related to the water strategy that has been presented to the board committee in draft and hasn't been approved yet. So I think we need some time to just better understand how those tie in. As far as water supply strategy, and there is some touch points on our overall water supply strategy on the Sunshine Coast and for the SCRD as a purveyor of water for the local service area. So I think that also has to be contemplated along with the board and how we prioritize this in the context of those aspects. So I think there's, as staff, we'd like some to understand what the implications are, and that would be what we would bring back to the board as far as some further considerations.
Thank you. So we'll be looking for a motion to ask staff to report back to the board. And are we looking at Q3 or are we looking at early Q4? I mean, realistically, September is really a bad month because of UBCM. And so I want to pin this down a little further.
Thank you, Chair. I think that staff would feel more comfortable with sort of the general 2024. I'm not sure we can meet the deadline for Q3, but I think within 2024 we could accomplish that. There could be also, Chair, some considerable financial implications from staff's component, and understanding will be in Q4 we'll have already started engaging that, so that would have to be part of the contemplation in the report as well.
Thank you. Director Inkster. Perhaps you'd like to specify a little further what motion you're making.
Sure. It was an agreement on what you're suggesting, but it was to move this report and the presentation to staff for further analysis.
And report back?
By December 31st, is that? Of 2024, it seems to not pressure staff too much, but obviously the information is needed.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a seconder? That's second. Is there further discussion on the motion on the floor? Director Lee.
Just a little clarification before we vote. We do have the water strategy outstanding and in a draft form, and I was hoping we would get that actually wrapped up this year. And this proposal very clearly fits into the water strategy. So I guess we're by default saying we're not going to do the water strategy before December 31st. Is that correct? Or maybe it'll happen sooner and we'll be happy? Is that what I should think?
Well, that's what I think. Sooner would be better. I'm looking at GM Rosenboom.
Thank you, Chair. If the board so desires, there are ways for us to include an action item, a strategic action item in the water strategy to explore this concept. This can be a strategic item that can be identified in the strategic plan to be actioned, which would allow the water strategy to be approved by the board prior to a decision on or a report being brought forward on this. This would be then just one of the actions that would be considered.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further hands up, I'm going to call the question. Okay, request to have the motion read back.
Thank you, Chair. And that staff report back to the board in 2024 with the implications and impacts of the town of Gibson's recommendations to the regional water strategy.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, seconded, read out. Now I'm calling it. All those in favor? Thank you. I see nobody opposed, so that passes. Thank you very much to our delegation for coming. We appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item in our agenda. Actually, perhaps we should take a 5-minute break here and come back at 10:25, and that'll allow everybody to regroup. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional District on Thursday, July the 11th, 2024. The next item on our agenda is a water supply update. Over to GM Rosenboom.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to share my screen with you. So there we are. The water supply update for July the 11th. And as you might notice, we have a new template for presentations. So the weather outlook. It's warm. It's warm not only here, it's warm all across Canada. The picture on the left shows the weather forecast for the upcoming months for Canada. And you can see from left to right, it's all warmer than normal. It's all dark red. There are some parts, if you're in the middle of Hudson Bay, it might be cooler than the average temperature at this time of the year, but that's about the only spot, or somewhere high up north in the Northwest Territories or in Quebec. The picture on the right shows that the longer term forecast for the upcoming 3 months is way more uncertain for our area. Currently, it's about 50-50. If it's warmer than normal, lower than normal. However, last month it was more definitely lower than normal. Now it's more 50-50. So I can see that moving up, and that we will have there's still a significant likelihood that we would have a warmer than normal and usually also a drier summer in our area. But there's definitely uncertainty around that. What has the water demand did over the last month? The graph on the right shows the residential water use in the SRD. So that's in the residential use in areas E, B, D, D, and F, excluding all the properties with a leak, 2023 compared to 2024. And you can see a substantial drop in demand last year compared to this year in June. And that's primarily the result of a little bit lower temperatures and primarily way more rain. We had close to 60 mil of rain last year, didn't even hit 20 mil in June. So you can definitely see the impact of rain on water consumption in the residential water consumption, which is primarily lawn watering. And I can also see the leak resolution and reduced use by high water users are definitely also contributing factors to this. And since the warm weather started early last week, we saw an about 25% increase in our water use. Last Saturday was the highest. We were just over 19 million liters a day, up from 14-15. And we're now hovering about just under 18 million cubes. So there is a tempering effect of the fact that we're now in stage 2. But definitely the warm weather has increased the demand to this on the system. So all the water systems are currently at stage 1 since May 1st, except, as we all know, Eastbourne and Chapman went to stage 2 on July 5th. Chesterwell and Church Road are both online. Grey Creek is not. Usually, last year we put Grey Creek online in stage 2, and this year we didn't do so. The reason why is we received direction from Vancouver Coastal Health to issue a water quality advisory before we can use that system. As the board might remember, Grey Creek is a system that we currently are exploring the feasibility of upgrading our treatment. At that intake location, currently it's a surface water intake and the water is only chlorinated, while to meet all the requirements from the Drinking Water Act, additional treatment is required. So there's a 3-year monitoring program that is that's finishing up early next year to confirm if it's feasible to upgrade the treatment on the system. Until then, until the treatment is upgraded, there's a change in the approach from VCH to the use of that system, that they're now requiring issuance of a water quality advisory. What does it mean, issuance of a water quality advisory? Is that there's a low risk to the health of some people within the community, and those people may want to consider taking precautionary measures. So it's a boil water advisory is completely something different. A boil water advisory means we recommend that all residents boil their water. This is because the water is unsafe, is otherwise could be unsafe to drink. This is that some people with health conditions already could be more vulnerable if they drink the water without taking precautionary measures. So what we're going to do is we're going to send a letter to the residents that will receive this water if we activate the source. Those will be the residents of Sandy Hook and Tewanak. And we are reconsidering if we are going to use the source in stage 3 or not. Last several years, we were allowed by VCH to actually send this water beyond Sandy Hook and Tewanak, actually blended in with the rest of the water in the Chapman system. So also parts of Seychelles were receiving this water mixed with Chapman water. We're no longer allowed by VCH to do so, and that means that we have a 10 to 15% reduction in our overall supply, depending on which stage we are. In stage 2, it's less than in stage 3. In stage 3, it's about 15%. So we have to offset that with Chapman water, Chapman Creek water, or with Church Road water. And currently, there's no environmental flow needs reduction in place for Chapman Creek because we didn't receive the support from the nation, Seychelles nation, to do so. So what is the outlook? South Pender Harbor water system could be moving to stage 2 in the upcoming weeks, but it really depends on the use by the community. So far, the use by the community has been substantially lower than last several years. Staff did a significant effort in approaching residents that have big leaks and high water use in the area. And so far, it looks like that has an impact because currently we're still below the licensed volume that we're allowed to use on a daily basis. So this is good news. But if this dry weather persists, we are monitoring the situation, and we could have to call stage 2 in upcoming weeks as required. Timing of advancing to stage 4, stage 3, and the Chapman and Eastbourne water system is of course really dependent on the demand in the systems and the supply and the amount of rain we get and the temperatures, etc. What about leak resolution? There are over 3,000 letters are being sent this week. I think there's a typo here because I know the number is 320-ish. So there's a typo here. My apologies. I think it's 328. So I think the 5 is incorrect. There were 3 additional shut-off letters sent to properties with ongoing leaks. One was recently resolved, and there are 2 outstanding. There's actually 2 recently resolved. There was one outstanding one that we sent a shut-off on in May, and that was over 100,000 liters a day leak, and that has been resolved in June as well. So this is good news, and the 2 outstanding ones I just received confirmation this morning that we have commitments from contractors as well as from property owners that they will be resolved in the upcoming days and a week. So that's good news as well. So it's very clear from our efforts this year that sending shut-off letters to properties with large leaks that are persistent, that are repeatedly receive letters but are not addressing them in a timely manner, that sending of shut-off letters is an effective way to get them resolved, because we actually did not, there has been no need to actually shut off somebody yet this year, which is good news. And 60 more properties are currently being considered. We are doing further investigation on those. We updated our brochure that's available on our website on how to fix water leaks for residential and commercial properties. And we will continue to communicate on a daily basis with residents about leaks. Communication. We're doing our monthly news release about water supply, the status of water supply updates. There was one in June, and the July one will be issued early next week. And staff created a new interactive map, so for the community to see what the status is of each of the water supply projects we are working on, and I'm trying to see if I can launch it from here. It should work. And there we go. Okay, I have to share my other screen in order to do that. Sorry. There you go. So this map, if, for example, Langdale, I'm making you all a little bit dizzy. If you, for example, click on the Roberts Creek Firehole test well location, you should see a link to more information about this project. So this is an easy way for anybody to easily figure out what is the status update, what is the current status of the project. And it mainly provides links to other documents, because if we then otherwise we have too many sources to keep updated. So it provides links to parts on our web page, documents, or other documents with a status update on that particular project. And this includes everything from siphons, EFN, Kinnikinnick test wells, other test wells, Eastbourne groundwater system. And we're constantly updating all these documents. So, but this is really for residents to get an easy geographic idea about where we're working on what. And now going back to my other slides. We're continuing to promote our 200 liters per person per day program. More on that in the upcoming weeks, also through social media and printed media. And of course, the srd.ca/water updates page is kept update on a almost daily basis, for sure, weekly. And happy to answer any questions you might have. And if residents, given that we're now in stage 2, wants to file a complaint about potential unauthorized water use, there's a form online they can use to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Director White.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Thank you to our staff. I've got a few questions. To start out, I'm wondering, one graph I don't see there, and maybe it's just we don't keep a close eye on this at this point of the season, but I'm wondering how our use is going overall, or broken into per household or per capita? And in comparison to other years, are we seeing that people are actually responding to the kind of the 200 liters per day campaign? And use is going down compared to other years, or, and I know it's hard to do because it varies. Obviously, use is probably going to be way higher the last few days. But that's even more reason to keep a close eye on it. I just asked our staff at the town yesterday that to kind of prepare those kind of numbers for us to have a look at soon because of the heat wave, and just responding to any concern if people might be using a lot more water than they need, particularly in the last week. We need to be concerned about that. So I'm wondering if those are numbers that I know I've seen them at the SCRD before, and that's been part of our communications campaigns where we'll sometimes say, well, here's our target for the next week. Can we meet it? And put that out to people. But I'm wondering if we are planning on looking at those numbers, that kind of metric as well this summer.
Over to staff.
Thank you very much. It's, as the director was already indicating, it's very difficult to identify, given the multitude of variables that are impacting the water supply and the water demand by the community. It's very difficult to identify what is the impact of, for example, that campaign we started. What we can see is that the overall use at the moment of 18 up to 19 is not much different than we had last several years. Is it because of it's pretty warmer compared to last year? It's early in the season compared to last year. It's later in the season compared to last. There's so many variables that are having an impact on that because residents, when their grass is already brown, they are not watering it anymore. When it's maybe still a little bit green, they might be enticed to just still water it a little bit because they want to bridge maybe the gap to the next rain event. So those kind of factors are playing a role. So really to identify the impact, the effect of one campaign is really difficult. What I can say is that overall, these are volumes that I would expect for stage 2 at this time of year. What we did do, and maybe this is the second part to your question, was in 2022, we deliberately set targets, weekly targets of 10,000 or 10 million or 11 million liters a day. We're not there yet, but that's something that we definitely will consider if the drought continues for the rest of the summer.
Thank you. Like Calgary. Director White, follow-up?
Yeah, I do have a follow-up. I would strongly support that approach. That's worked well in the past too, setting those targets. It's something that we can all use to kind of encourage our constituents too. But yeah, secondly, just I had a follow-up too. Do we see use going up when we implement stage 2? That's something we've seen at the town. And I think we have maybe slightly different stage 2s, but we often see when we implement stage 2, overall use actually goes up. And it's not until stage 3 that we really see some changes because people start to worry, I think, when stage 2 hits, which is another, presents a communications challenge for sure because it's against the intent of trying to get people to conserve more.
Staff, does use go up during stage 2?
Thank you. It's very clear that when we call stage 2, usually there's a lag time of 1 or 2 days. Let's say this time around we issued it on, it was in effect as a Friday, and Saturday was our peak, and Sunday was back to the level of Friday, and Monday was even a little bit lower, and we're still at that level. So you can see that delay, while Sunday was actually warmer almost than Saturday and Monday as well. So there's definitely there's a 1 or 2 day lag period, but then you can definitely see the impact of issuance of stage 2 being in effect on the water use. So it's not going up because of the calling of stage 2. It went up because of the extreme warm weather.
Thank you. And I'm just going to note that the 200 liters a day target, you have to have a water meter to know if you're hitting that, because we don't know how many people are in your house. And so I know how much water my home is using and how many of us there are, and I can do that arithmetic without too much trouble. Director Inkster.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I now know I'm about to save money on paying my kids to mow the lawn. Things are starting to turn brown. One of the questions I had through you to staff, and a couple of questions. One is the time of watering. We have our watering windows that we allow people to do, and obviously we know that water consumptions, if it is going up at stage 2 and 3, as we're talking about, and as Director Wright mentioned, is obviously people trying to save their gardens and their lawns. Can't see why they'd want to wash cars more when we hit stage 2. I don't know, maybe to make them look nicer. But I'm wondering about the evaporation issues and whether staff is considered and whether we should look at times for watering because of the high evaporation during the daytime. I've heard in the past, because I've been here that long, is that when we were talking about different watering times, that the regional district was concerned that the time at which we could water with no sunlight and when it's cooler is when they're trying to fill the reservoirs for treatment, so don't do that. But I'm wondering if we should start talking about that when the evaporation goes to almost zero because of the coolness of the night air. That's one question. The other question is the information that was provided on the maps to look at projects. Gilker's an interesting one. I'm wondering if we can send that information, if staff, if it's not easily available or they won't do it, just to send that information to our staff. Because I'm trying to figure out ways that we can use less water in our parks. And so to look at existing projects that look at taking water from the land around may be a consideration for all the water that's being used at Kinnickinnick. So, and I've been talking to staff about that. So if we could send that information to our staff, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
Staff, did you want to attempt those 2 questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. In terms of the first one, there are times in the day under stage 3 and 4, 2 to 3, that watering is approved. For example, when using watering trees, flowers, shrubs, it's 7 to 9 on the even numbers, and on Thursday and Sunday, and odd numbers on Wednesday and Saturday. And so 7 to 9 in the morning, and 7 in some others, like food producing plants, can be watered between 7 and 9 in the evening and in the morning. Those hours are selected because it's proven that and those are those best practices. They will still be effective in make sure that those plants, shrubs, and trees are alive, and B, to especially the evening ones, to reduce evaporation. So it's not allowed currently on the stage 2 to water your shrubs at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because of the evaporation issue. The second question was about Cliff Coker, about the water use on Cliff Coker. I can ask staff to share the information, the monthly water use information on that with Parks Department. That's no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to follow up. We requested to see the high users list suitably anonymized on an upcoming agenda. When is that coming?
Thank you. The request was to also do that analysis for the other water systems. And at that time, we indicated that it might take a little bit of time to do so, given our current focus. If that changes, if that timeline for that changes, we would need to know that. But I see that my CEO also has her hand up.
Over to
Or
you.
no? No, Tina, no, sorry. I was putting you on the spot, sorry. You're not.
Okay, I'm just going to say we need to have a conversation as local governments about our water use in our parks. And so I was hoping to see that list to inform that lively conversation that needs to happen. Director Stanford.
I just was looking for some clarification around the situation with Grey Creek. Just so I understand interpreting this, there's a new requirement from Vancouver Coastal Health. Will the potential upgrades to the filtration system provide the right level of processing so that we can then again consider using Grey Creek on a wider consideration later once we have this three-year study done? So does that make any sense?
I don't know. Staff is going to try it.
Thank you, Chair, through the director. Yes, I think it makes sense what you're saying. How I see your question is, will the treatment that we're currently confirming, if it's indeed feasible to increase the treatment there, yes, the treatment will be targeted on meeting all the regulatory requirements. So if the treatment is in place, which, just to give an idea, it will be multi-million dollar, it will be construction of an entire new treatment plant. That will resolve this issue. But then, so hopefully sometime next year, we have a better understanding if it's feasible, and then we still need to do design, permitting, and construction, so it will take some time.
Follow-up?
Follow-up comment. Thank you for understanding my garbled question.
And I'm going to follow that up because basically what my understanding was that if we use this water, we have to issue a water quality advisory. Why not? We could still use the water and issue the water quality advisory. It's not a boil water advisory, as you noted. So why don't we want to do that?
Thank you for the question. We want to make sure that the residents are aware. So we very recently were informed by VCH about this new requirement. I have to say this approach from VCH is already in place in other parts of the country. This region wasn't taking that approach yet to this kind of water systems, water intakes, water sources with insufficient treatment. They are now applying it as well. So we're currently working on communication plan. We will, because we also have to provide notice in newspapers and all that stuff before we can actually use the water. So we're working through the process. And once we have informed also the residents, then we will definitely consider, and also based on the outcome of the concerns we received from residents, etc., we'll activate Grey Creek.
Thank you. Director Bax.
Yeah, staying on the subject of Grey Creek, and I just want to say that this water project information page, the map that you showed us earlier with the interactive water drops is fantastic. I've been looking through a bunch of the different projects. One of the things that I don't see on that map is the Church Road, which is always of interest to people. Maybe it's just not on the draft one that I have, but it could be improved. It could be included in that. Looking at the Grey Creek treatment upgrades, a couple of questions. It says that the results of the modeling and design will be presented to the Board of Directors in 2024. Has that happened, or am I missing something?
Sorry, for which project? For?
So in the tab for the Grey Creek water treatment upgrades, on the interactive map. There's the project timeline. Project initiated watershed modeling and water treatment plant design is the second step. It's not been highlighted, and the results of modeling and design presented to the Board of Directors in 2024 has not been highlighted, and it says estimated project completion is 2027. How far down that timeline have we gone?
Staff.
Thank you for the question through the chair. I would have to review that myself. I closed the link, sorry. It's my understanding that the monitoring is not completed until early next year. So maybe that information that is presented for Great Geek is inadequate, and the presentation to the board about the visibility for sure will only happen next year. So I will review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I understand it's a complex system, and there's a lot of things that need to be updated constantly.
And since we're critiquing the website, I couldn't find the How to Fix Your Leak brochure. But anyway, Director Gabius.
Thank you, Chair. Well, let's talk about the website a little bit. Any chance that we could make water more prominent in the landing page? I'm on srd.ca/water-updates. I wasn't able to get to that page through the website. I didn't know where to find it, so I had to type it in. But is there a way that we can get that little dashboard back on the landing page and have, say, like I want to talk about the monthly updates. Could this be absolutely prominent as you land on the page? Because I think it was really inspiring this morning to hear that Town of Gibson's was able to reduce their demand so much through education, volumetric billing, and leak detection. We're not at volumetric billing just yet, but the closest thing we have are those monthly updates. I feel like we have to push this so hard. I don't know what we can do, what's being done right now, and what we can do to have a big blitz to get more people signed up. In preparation for volumetric billing, people can see their usage and then maybe compare, okay, how much would it cost me if I lived in Gibson's? How much would it cost me if I lived in Cowichan? Or even if we don't have that amount for here right now, just kind of get them thinking. So I guess the question is, what is staff currently doing, and what can we do more to get more people signed up?
Thank you, through the chair. I've been already working yesterday. I was in a conversation with our manager of communications. Given that we're now in stage 2 to highlight water more on the website, but also in other campaigns on social media, etc., etc. So more is to come on that. And what I can say in terms of water use. The Town of Gibson showed a graph in their slides about their annual demand per capita. Theirs is currently, I think, about 430, and ours is 490 something. So it's under 500, and the information presented by the town was still showing 562, which is outdated. It's below 500 at the moment, and it's only going down. The more meters we put in place, the more big leaks we resolve. It's only going down, and it's going down fast. Because, like recently, we had that 100,000 liters a day leak addressed. Makes a difference. That's percentages. So I think we're definitely trending in the direction of getting equal to the use of the Town of Gibson's.
Thank you. And speaking of Town of Gibson's, Director White.
Yeah, sure, I'll go. I wanted to touch on the leaks part of the report. I mean, as we mentioned, as the town mentioned earlier in our report, presentation, we really support a part of getting to where that per capita usage that we are is a really aggressive approach to highlighting that aggressive approach to addressing leaks, which we'd like to see a little more reflected in the water strategy yet. What I'm seeing is a more aggressive approach this year as compared to last year's. So I want to give SCRD staff great credit for that. I think that's really encouraging that more leaks are being found with the expansion of meters. That there's actually shut-off letters going out and good responses to them. I guess there's 16. I noticed there's 16 more being considered for shut-off, and I'm kind of wondering I'm sure they're all different situations. What the criteria is for kind of considering when a letter goes out, making that decision, and I know some of these have been really, I guess, without getting into the individuals, like are we addressing some of the really long-term chronic ones? Are we getting responses to those, or are they still kind of sitting out there just knowing that they might be they haven't been responsive in the past? I guess that's one question. And then secondly, I'm wondering if some of these are new leaks that have been identified. We had good news about a month ago, I think, in 2 or 3 really significant new leaks being identified and addressed. And I'm wondering if that's also been happening since then too.
Over to staff.
Thank you very much. The leaks that are currently being resolved and the shut-offs notifications that are currently being considered, those 16 are all leaks, all properties that have received several leak letters, notifications in the past, as well as they still have a high leak amount per day estimate. So they're estimated to be big leaks, and they know the residents have been informed several times that they leak and that they have to fix it. So, and the criteria changes a little bit from when we're in stage 2 to stage 3 to stage 4. There can be different variables in play here, as well as what kind of property is it. Is it a single residential, or is it commercial, or is it a multi-residential? We take different approaches based on the circumstances to be, because we have to take them into account. But overall, and I have to say that 100,000 liters per day leak was a new install in Seashield, which is good news.
Very much. Thank you. I'm going to take 2 more questions, and then I think we should move along in our agenda. So, Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. The Grey Creek situation kind of, I guess, confuses me quite a bit. We've never issued that kind of a notice all the time we've been using it. And so why they would issue something like that right smack in the middle of a water crisis is very indicative of a provincial government bureaucracy that's detached from reality. It's kind of disturbing. Anyways, I just thought I would make that comment. I guess so that we have to issue the letter because a quick look at some figures I think are close is that Grey Creek gives us about 160,000 cubic meters during a drought. Church Road gives us 700,000 cubic meters. That's a significant drop in water supply. Probably 4 or 5 days of a straight stage, but that's a wild guess. I don't think I'll ask staff to comment on that. It's kind of a political
But
Maybe
GM
the
Rosenboom is going
math
to
would
jump into
be-
deep waters.
Maybe the math would be interesting, though. If we
I
could-
will respond to the math. Yes, there will be a reduction. Swanwick and Sandy Hook could still receive that water, so it will depend on if we issue an advisory, a water quality advisory, they would still be able to receive that water. And we're currently in the process of fine-tuning indeed the math that you were just providing to do on the back end of the napkin. And as indicated, this is a result of changes in processes within Vancouver Coastal Health. It's not something that we ask for or whatever. There's no change in regulatory framework. It's a change in process. It's up to the discretion of the drinking water officer. It's unrelated to drought response, but I'm going to mention it anyway. We also need to issue a letter for Cove K, similar. Cove K, we've been in the we have a process on the books to upgrade the treatment on that system because it's a surface water system, it only has chlorination at the moment, and we're in the process of actually preparing the tender or finalizing the tender documents for a procurement for completing an upgraded design for the treatment and the permitting, etc., etc. But until that project is completed, we're also required to issue water quality advisory to all the residents of the Cove K water system.
Follow up, Director Lee.
That seems to indicate North Pender's got the same issue.
No.
Is that correct?
North Pender, Garden Bay has UV, so it has already two forms of, it has chlorination and UV, and Cove K only has chlorination.
Okay, so just so I can get my mind around it, it's related to the fact that if you have excess particles in the water, they could be defeating the chlorine. And so if you have UV, then it's just a discoloration. But because we don't have UV, it is a potential.
You need to have the secondary, and Cove K doesn't have a secondary form of treatment at the moment.
Good, thank you. The actual question, other than an observation, South Pender, we have McNeil, that's around 700,000 cubic meters of storage, and we have Harris, which is around 392,000 cubic meters of storage. Mind you, our licenses are a little different between the two. If we could get Harris so that the capacity we had there was fully accessible, would we still be implementing the stage restrictions?
Over to staff.
Thank you very much. One of the projects approved by the board early this year was to do an assessment, a water supply assessment of the entire system. So of how much water is actually available in McNeil and Harris Lake for water supply purposes. And that can be different than actually the volume in the lake. Because our intake is at the bottom, currently at the bottom of McNeil Lake, and we need a certain amount of water above that intake for it to continue to work. So we're currently confirming how much of the water that's actually, or the intent of the project is to confirm how much of the water that is in McNeil Lake and that we're licensed to use, can we actually technically use to still, can we actually use for water supply without actually making our intake inoperational. And as part of the question, we're also doing the same thing on Harris Lake. How much water is actually in the lake physically at the moment? How much can we get out at the moment? And what kind of infrastructure upgrade might be required to use the maximum amount available in the lake or license whatever is greater?
Follow up?
I think most likely we're not going to get that kind of statistics this year, so I think it's a next year is the answer to it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You've just squeaked in under the wire, Director Bax, because I'm going to close this off and
I understand.
right after you.
So my question is for the representative for Gibson's. I know that our water system goes into stage 2 from the amount of water that's going over the dam. I was wondering what the Gibson's. I wonder what Gibson's
should be.
Do you know what Gibson's uses as their stage 2 trigger?
In fact, I do not know what the stage 2 trigger is for Gibson's. Perhaps Director White would know.
Perhaps he would. Would you ask him for me?
Good question. I think it's largely about usage that we're seeing at certain times of the year. I think is once we see. I mean, we're largely in the summer concerned about people's usage going up unsustainably, even though we have a sustainable system through the aquifer. So it's all about trying to get usage down. And as I mentioned earlier, stage 2 presents a bit of a challenge to us because we often see a blip where people actually start to use more when it's stage 2, and they really don't start to conserve at stage 3, which we so we always need. Last year we added a bit more communications out there saying, if you really want to, we're going to stage 2, but if you really want to avoid stage 3, get your water down, got your usage down, and that did seem to work because we didn't have to go to stage 3. But that's some explanation. We don't have an exact trigger, but it has to do with weighing the time of year and the usage that we're seeing per capita, per household.
Thank you. GM Rosenboom?
Thank you, Chair. This was not in the, I want to make one comment, and not in response to what Director White was just saying. If you look at the SRD webpage, it already looks different than 10 minutes ago in terms of where the prominence of water and work is underway to increase it further as we speak. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda. We are finally here, is volumetric billing project update, and I'm going to our CFO.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this particular report is a update on volumetric billing. Because volumetric billing is not an overt project approved by the board and is a culmination of projects, which include updates to bylaws, new staffing resources, various technical upgrades, and so we wanted to provide a general update on where we are related to this process. It was one of the key items that was raised during our utility billing process, was residents wanted to know when they could receive their volumetric bills and when they could receive more information. So hence why we're providing an update today. Also, we have several key related tasks, and we wanted to ensure that the public and the board understood that we were going to begin engaging in that process. And also, we have some less overt type of agreements that we've made publicly and with the board, and that is related to what we call mock billing and providing more information. So some of that was also mentioned earlier, just about people being able to get data and when they can expect to have more access to that particular resource. So this particular report too is a little bit different in the way that we have presented these types of information before, more related to the concept of the importance related to the board's strategic plan and one of its key focus areas being the implementation of volumetric billing, but also the fact that it will require a significant amount of resources to our staff from multiple divisions. So we wanted to ensure that there was clarity on that as we start to contemplate prioritizing our projects, especially as it relates to water supply. So we have provided sort of a high-level overview, and more information will come. And if there is any risks to the project, we most certainly will come back to the board as far as any updates related to the process and timelines. Because there are some critical paths that need to be achieved in concert, and some further decisions with the board will need to be made, specifically our water rate structure. So with that, I will pass to the committee for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to start with a question, which is how many hours is an FTE? My arithmetic was around 1,800 hours a year. Would that be accurate?
That would be if someone took no holidays and any kind of leave. So this discussion was just recently had, and the average productive hours for, say, an inside person would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,350 hours a year. And that just depends on the type of positions. For instance, exempt staff management work far greater than that, and that's not typically reflected in that. So it's just to give a general sense. It's not a prescription, but it's just to really give an idea of the undertaking.
Thank you. And the additional question I had is, these estimates are for the project of implementing billing, but presumably there is support required on a long-term basis to keep the billing running. Would that be a separate estimate? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. That would be. And that's also part of what we're trying to explore is adjunct next steps related to implementing this change of process and business process, because it will change the way we do things here at the regional district internally. The board made an approval for an additional staff in our utility billing for this year, just recognizing that we're going to need some more resources there. There's been past approvals, but those staff are working a lot on the leak detection side. And so as our leak detections reduce, those resources will be available to do different types of things. So we're just trying to learn more information and contemplate those potential changes, but it will be an evolution of, I would say, 3 to 5 years.
Thank you very much. Director Bax.
Yeah, this is what the public has asked us to do, is to tackle the water issue head on, do what needs to be done in order for us to create a more sustainable system that has a certain amount of fairness to it. And I did some math on this, and it looks to me like it's a dozen and a half people spending a half a day a week each on this, and that's the reality of it. Is that that's a big chunk of time for people to put into this. But I imagine that after 3 to 4 years, it will streamline itself and become a little more easy, and so that we can look forward to that. But yeah, it does represent like. It's 17 employees doing a half a day's work every week. But I appreciate what's gone into this, and I think this is the road we need to go down in order to create a system that's going to be sustainable and fair.
CFO, any further comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do want to ensure that there's an understanding that the outcome of volumetric billing has highlighted that the regional district has several other items to catch up upon. So we have our bylaw updates to bylaw 422. That's one of the projects that we need to do. And so because we have to do essentially a rewrite of that particular bylaw, that may or may not be the case. That's part of why we have so many additional hours, is because we're doing multiple different things to lead us to be able to do volumetric billing. And so if another organization may not be in that particular case, where they need to update bylaw, say our bylaw 320, which is extremely dated, also has some impacts to this process. So we're playing catch up on multiple things. So that's why the resources look quite significant at this time. It's because we need all of those facets to better understand things like leak detection process, what kind of regulations are we going to put into place, for instance, right down to our developments and how developments are constructed, which leads to the billing process. We need to contemplate all of those factors. So that's why I think we're probably a little bit more extensive resources are required because we're doing multiple other projects that lead us to a better result to volumetric billing.
Thank you. Director White.
I guess I just first wanted to echo Director Back's comments that I guess in our experience of the town, at least what I see of someone who's come in, I have to acknowledge I'm someone who's come into the town since we've done metering, so I wasn't there before, but I can say we have a very lean team at the town, and it is just part of doing the way we do things. It doesn't seem like we have anybody. It's just integrated in everyone's positions. It's not. So hopefully, it's not something that requires an ongoing, long-time ongoing staffing commitment. It makes a lot of sense that the SCRD will need these resources in the shorter implementation term, but now it's just what everybody does. And the SCRD has even better technology than the town does because most of the meters are being implemented much more recently. So should be even smoother here, I would hope. One question I have, though, I've got some more comments, but I'll wait till others speak, but is how does it work for farms? Because we do have a metered rate for farms. I understand from other reports and their volumetric billing for farms. And what is that based on when we haven't done all this work of this work that's kind of being contemplated in this report? And also, does anyone else have a metered volumetric rate, or is it only farms right now?
Over to staff.
Yeah, we already do volumetric billing. This is, I think, in a wider net and mostly for residents. We have metered billing on businesses, industry, and we also were able to implement that. So part of the recommendation is that we develop options for a comprehensive volumetric rate. So we have some considerations for volumetric rates within our existing bylaw, but that will be part of the review, including each property class. So those options will come back to the board for consideration. So what the volumetric rates are set for right now and how they're structured will be reevaluated as part of the update.
So just to follow up, so the current system is by property class. Is it also by size of connection?
I can't answer that 100% right now. I believe so. Frequency, those types of things are not consistently applied. So that's part of what we're exploring and discovering through this process is that that needs to be consistently applied as well.
Thank you. Director Gabius.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report to staff. I think we've been waiting for some information on that great project, so thank you. And my question is about mock billing. Just trying to understand the purpose of mock billing. Is it mostly for the residents to get used to it and to be prepared, or is there does that give staff more time to tinker, or like what's the purpose of that 1 year of mock billing? Thanks.
Both. I think that it will provide, and we're discussing what that will look like to ensure there's no confusion, for instance, that people don't think they have to pay another bill. It's used as an information tool And it's also used for those people who, we also recognize that not everyone wants to sign up for their metered information. So this might be the first time that they will interface related to their water use. So we want to ensure that we are meeting all of the demographic needs and user needs, and we're sharing on all fronts to be able to educate folks on that. We also want to give people a lead time to change behavior. So that's the other element to metering, is that it's known that behavioral changes take some time. Whether or not we're implementing green waste and composting, it just takes time for people to know. And also so they can, budget. And we can also calibrate the system, because we're going to continue to, we're still implementing leaks on our existing system. So as our system moderates itself, we'll be able to ensure that we have an appropriate rate to recover what we need for the system.
Thank you. Director Lee.
Thank you very much for this report. It sure gives me lots to think about. It's pretty hard to separate all the things that meters are going to do for us and then put it under one heading, such as volumetric billing. It appears that this is a estimate of leak detection as well as volumetric billing, and the development of systems to do all of that. I really appreciate the figures, though. It's great. If we go to the public with more details, so somehow we have to say, there's a lot of benefits, and it's not just all for the billing part of it. That communication strategy is going to be a little bit tricky. Anyways, thank you, and I appreciate the additional information.
Director White.
Yes, I'd like to ask some questions and just put something out there based on what I talked about earlier with our really strong feelings about an aggressive approach. Also, what I heard Director Bax say earlier about the public telling us to tackle this head on. I am wondering, based on, I look at the context of Gibson's years ago compared to what we're looking at the SCRD right now, and there are a lot of significant differences, positive differences. One is we've already got this program that people are opting in to as they get meters to be able to see what their usage is. And the data is essentially available in real time with the kind of technology that the SCRD has right now, where unfortunately we can't even, despite the effectiveness of our system, we can't even do that at the town because our meters are so old. So that's a real bonus, is that people can see much, no? I mean, a close to real time compared to what we have. Not even? No? Okay, I thought that's what was, I mean, if people are measuring their usage, I thought that this campaign of people being able to see what they're at it implied that, but I'll have to get some more details on that. I still think the fact, though, the results that usage has already gone down per capita to under 500, which it was over that in the town, is really positive. And I think, I mean, this is a big, really policy decision for the board here, even though it's coming as a recommendation from staff about how we want to approach behavioral change, how we think. I mean, I heard Director Bax, and I think others would agree, the public's expecting us to take an aggressive approach here, tackle this head on. And I'm wondering if the board should consider skipping the mock billing and just going straight to volumetric billing. It's already being done for a lot of properties, for commercial commercial properties, farming. There's been a great response rate so far to people measuring their billing and responding to that through the 200 liters a day program. And we are already looking pretty far down the road, and people have been talking about this for years, as this has been long awaited. So I just want to put that out there as an option that I think this board can consider, should consider. I don't have a vote on it, but that should be the kind of discussion I think we have here. And I see staff wants to weigh in, but I think it's also, I just really want to make this clear. When I hear things like the public's telling us to tackle this head on, I really think this is a board discussion to talk about things like that. What's the public ready for? What's the public ready to take on? And when we think about the public, we shouldn't be thinking about the loud voices on Facebook who are going to be resisting this no matter what. We really need to be thinking about primarily the citizens who are concerned about water and understand that conservation is one of the big is one of the keys to tackling this problem. So I wanted to put that out there.
Okay, I will pass this over to staff, but I can't resist pointing out that the citizens who are concerned about conservation are not the problem. It is the other people whose behavior needs to change. But over to CFO.
Policy discussion is of utmost importance as we implement, and that's essentially part of element number 2, develop options for comprehensive volume rate structure, as well as regulation bylaw. Types of elements that'll need to be considered to implement will be types of rate structure being, as recalled, presented by our rate study, taking a more moderate approach in order to have people or have our ability to catch up. But we already have significant data in the north and south system that we will potentially present options that are a little more leaning towards a step rate structure, especially through seasonal use. So those are those policy decisions. From a timing perspective, I think one of the considerations we'll need to do is ensure that we're able to action. So back to the original comment, part of the benefit of the mock billing is because this is a new process for the regional district, and because North and South Pender are going to be the first to be launched, we'll need some time because the regional system's much larger, and we want to take those lessons before we apply them to the regional system. And there's significant implementation associated with that. So we're implementing one side, taking some time so we are in time for the regional system. So there's a few nuanced factors for us to be able to just deep dive right into it. And so we would need to ensure that we would have the regulations completed before this year. We'd have to ensure that the rate structure, and we just don't have the capacity to do that. We're trying, but we have significant vacancies in some key staff that are helping. We've got some surge capacity through consultants, but that's part of the consideration with this timeline as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bax.
I believe Director Gabias hasn't spoken on this yet. Oh, have you? Okay. Anyway, I'd like to recommend the recommendations. I'd like to put forward the recommendations as they appear on page 3.
Do we have a seconder? We have a seconder. Motion is on the floor. Director Gabias.
Thank you, Chair. I was thinking, looking at this report, how can we speed this up? Again, people in my area are asking for volumetric billing. They do not want to subsidize heavy users. They want an equitable system. They want us to, yes, tackle this head on and be quite aggressive. Hearing staff's comments about capacity issues. I'm wondering if the board was to say, we're going to prioritize this, what would need to fall off? what, I guess without that, that tool, it's hard to make these kinds of decisions, but is there an idea of what would need to be put on the back burner if we wanted to prioritize this?
Staff. It's a wonderful question, and it's what the SLT was working on yesterday, was essentially trying to work towards prioritizing and then matching our resources associated with the key priorities. So the board will be meeting in September to meet together on what the preliminary findings, and then some decisions by the board will need to be made in contemplation to various other projects that might require same staff. So that will be the tool and the process that we see, because we understand that there are some critical projects the board wants to see completed in their term. And so we need to ensure that we articulate and provide a decision tool for you to be able to understand and articulate that and make those decisions. I feel confident we'll have that tool in front of you in September.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask, just out of curiosity, if the mock billing in North and South Pender went flawlessly, like a dream, could we consider not doing the mock billing for the regional service?
Yes, I think we could. I think we would want to ensure that we had good information from the operations team as to how confident they felt with the output. Things like ensuring we have a significant progress related to leaks occurred, because if it's a variable rate structure that you're applying, what many others who have gone before us, including our friends in the town of Gibsons, is if you don't have it right, then you're going to have significant variations in your rate. And those are just some considerations that we're going to have to make along this way. But of course, as soon as we're ready, we'll try to implement it as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Director Inkster.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion once we vote on it, Chair. But I concur with Director Gabius in trying to speed up this process. What's happening and what I'm hearing is I have a number of people in my community, based on their questions, thinking that volumetric billing is happening now in Sechelt once well, it's even further ahead than that. Once they receive the meter in their yard, they think that volumetric billing starting the next week or as soon as it can be implemented. Being in government, I don't say things like we actually don't move that quickly in government. I try not to say those things, but that's what they're expecting. And so many don't know that 2-3 blocks over, the meters are still arriving, and in many parts of Sechelt, their meters haven't been installed, much like Councillor Director Toth mentioned. But once they're installed, it would be good to see a program for the actual volumetric billing. I had people asking me, and this I hope is going to be part of the lead up to this and the clear communications. What I'm hearing also is, oh no, I'm going to be charged more for water. So we're still not communicating what volumetric billing may mean, that there is probably going to be a minimum. And so we need to keep talking about that, as well as trying to determine this board in helping staff move towards implementing the program as quick as is possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Director White.
I just wanted to, I mean, that's completely agree with what the Director Inkster just said. And yeah, if people are starting to change their behaviors as soon as they see a meter installed, that's great. Like, I wouldn't discourage them from that. Let's as soon as a meter comes in, start thinking about paying more attention to how you're using your water at home, for sure. I just wanted to comment on the concept of hoping everything goes perfect and great. I don't think it will. I think that's something the board and the whole organization needs to be prepared for, is that, I mean, that certainly happened in the town of Gibsons, where there was a shift in rates which was, you know, at the time, I'm sure there was it was kind of a short-term pain for a long-term gain situation, because at the time, I'm sure there were a lot of complaints about the fact that people's rates went up because they conserved water. You need a certain amount of money to run the system, and if leaks are found and people are using less, then you still need that same amount of money. So rates ended up going up in the first couple of years that way, and I think that's what you need to be concerned about when you're implementing this. But part of it is communications and preparing people for that. And also part of it is just having that long-term vision, that long-term outlook that yes, this isn't going to be perfect at the start, but over time, I mean, I get no complaints about water meters in the town of Gibsons. It's nobody's coming and saying, you know, that second year of implementation was brutal, or when the rates went up. It's all just accepted now, and I think that's really important for the board to look at that long-term, the long-term results, and realize there is going to be an implementation period where there will be some people who may be upset about their rates going up and down. But that will stabilize over time.
Thank you. It's true. If our usage goes down 100 liters a day, it doesn't mean that we have fewer dams, fewer water mains, or fewer pumping stations. We still have to maintain the entire system. I believe Director Inkster's hand is residual. Director Gabius.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to add a little bit about communications, and I'm glad that part of the recommendations is to have a communication strategy on this. And I think that's a great opportunity with starting to educate people about volumetric billing, also roll in, you know, like how to prepare for it. How can you prepare for volumetric billing? Like, for example, consider having a rainwater catchment system to reduce your bill. Like, start thinking about this now. So kind of so not have the information just about volumetric billing, but also get ready for it. You know, think about conservation and signing up for your monthly update so that you already have a heads up. You're already ahead of the curve with your information. So hopefully that'll be part of the communication strategy.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question because we have a motion on the floor to pass the recommendations on page 3. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, the long-awaited 2024-2034 Community Works Fund Agreement. And who is presenting that one?
I can, Chair. It's here in front of you, and so it highlights in the report some of the changes that have been included in the updated agreement. We do not yet have nuanced detail that will be presented from UBCM on July 23rd. I'm not quite sure if that's available to all elected officials as well, but I will ensure that that is passed along. And so we're just looking here to have the delegated authority sign the new agreement.
Thank you. Director Back.
I'm very interested in this, as I am currently working on a project that could involve some funding from this, and I forwarded my proposal to our CFO, acting CAO, this morning, and I was hoping to get some time to talk to someone in staff about how we as directors can align our projects to fit these funds that we're receiving from the Government of Canada, and whether it's going to be we're going to be doing it one project at a time, or if there's going to be some type of lunch and learn perhaps that can give us a rundown on the nuances of this agreement.
Over to staff.
Thank you, Chair. We have provided a report in the past when we have more details. There's typically what's eligible, what's ineligible. This is just a summary. So we also have in tandem, as part of the board's policy review committee, it was highlighted that the Community Works Fund policy, board policy, was going to be presented or reconsidered once we had received the agreement. I think that would be some of the process for next steps. I think also in contemplation to both the policy, but also how we allocate funds is a different type of board decision that could be as part of that community or that policy decision related to the policy.
Thank you. I assume we'll probably have a report in conjunction with budget, run up to budget. And I'm particularly interested in whether the resilience category might be applied to our parks, as there is, so much work needing to be done in our parks. And then, of course, bus stops, our favorite topic. Director Lee.
I will note that Area A has absolutely no problem spending all of our funds. I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendations as outlined on page 7.
And that is seconded. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm calling the question. All those in favor? That passes. Thank you very much. And the final item on our agenda is the 911 service antenna co-location agreement with the RCMP, and over to GM Hall.
Thank you, Chair. So this report seeks authority to enter into an agreement with RCMP that would enable us to share tower space at the Chapman Creek Tower and at a tower in Pender Harbor. It continues cooperation with RCMP that we've enjoyed for a number of years, and it avoids having to build another tower. So it's cooperation with a business benefit for all parties. It also, avoiding extra towers, is a visual benefit and aligns with EGBC's directive to avoid building more towers. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Bax.
Sorry, yeah, I like the monetary figures that are brought here. It costs us $1 to avoid a 1.5 million. That's awesome. I like that. I'm going to move the recommendations as they appear on page 33.
And I see a seconder. Is there any further discussion? I doubt it very much. I'm calling the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That passes. We love to save money because we don't get to do it very often. So we have no communications. We have no in-camera agenda. We have no new business that I'm aware of. So I would like a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all in favor. We have adjourned. And I'm just going to see if there are, well, we have 0 attendees. So I would say there are no public questions. Thank you, everyone.